Well, it's the big one, the Melbourne to Warrnambool. All of the riders are nervous, all 300 of them, of course. Now, there are 16 sprints out along the course. There are also 5 hill climbs. The most significant of those comes 80 kilometres from the finish out of the town of Camperdown. That's where the race really will get set up for that final run-in to Warrnambool. The big names to watch today. Look out for last year's winner, Oliver Kent-Spark. Also, the Australian Track Endurance National Coach, Tim Decker, is on the start line. He was the winner here in 2007. And then look out for the riders like Jack Bobridge, Scott Sunderland, all of the riders from Avanti and Charter Mason, because the team's classification in the Subaru National Road Series is really going to play a tactical role here today as well. It was a nervous start to the Lakes Oil Melbourne to Warrnambool for the 100th edition, with 300 riders setting off from the start in Werribee for 280 kilometres towards Warrnambool. After several close calls, eventually 22 kilometres into the race, there was a mass pile-up which affected Lucas Hamilton from the VIS Jayco team. He had to change a wheel and then chase to get back on. And also last year's winner, Oliver Kent-Spark, and the Avanti star from New Zealand, Joe Cooper, were also caught out by that crash and spent 15 kilometres chasing to rejoin the main field. After several attacks were unsuccessful going off the front of the main field, there was a lull in the peloton, and Ed White and Tyson Chambers seized their opportunity to go off the front at 54 kilometres. The two leaders worked well together, and they opened the gap out to 30 seconds before 3 more riders attacked the main field, with Peter Casey, Sam Hill and Nick Squalari as they bridged across to the two leaders at the 78 kilometre point.
So I bridged across with 3 other guys and we were working really well. We heard Jake Kauffman was coming in. Obviously he's a very threatening rider, so we weren't sure if we wanted him there or not.
Kind of got to the point, it was out at about 6 minutes and we weren't represented, so it was sort of either go across or ride the front really. And I figured, well, might as well play a card and see if we can make something of it. Kind of regretted it for a long while there, but you know, got there, I still felt really good.
Team tactics were playing a major role back in the peloton, with teams not willing to go on the chase, and that allowed the breakaway group to blow out to 13 minutes in front.
Jake Kauffman was really keen on driving the break, and he wasn't concerned about the preem. So over the first hill, I took it, and then coming into the 200k preem, I just stayed attentive towards the front, and with about 50 metres to go, I just went for it, and that was that.
With all the climbs out of the way, there was action back at the peloton, with Jack Bobridge, Brad Linfield and Darcy Woolley going off the front.
When I heard Jack Bobridge was bridging, we were obviously very concerned because Jake Kauffman was feeling so strong, and with Bobridge there, I didn't think we'd be able to stop him. And sure enough, I was going blow for blow with Kauffman for a little bit, but in the end I just couldn't respond.
With 30 kilometres remaining, the 2 teammates from Budget Forklifts, Jack Bobridge and Jacob Kauffman, were trying to stave off the peloton.
Certainly didn't die wondering, gave it everything we had today, and you know, if nothing else, I think Jack and I being up the road gave the boys an armchair ride and finished it off.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible for him to still even be at the finish, you know, pulling turns with me and hurting my legs after what he did at the start of the race and right to the end. So.
The remnants of the breakaway group was absorbed by the peloton, and Bobridge and Kauffman were out at 1 minute and 30 seconds ahead, but the chase was on in earnest.
All of a sudden we had a minute 20 and they caught us, so it was probably that headwind coming home. It was the hardest after being out there all day and doing what Jake did and I did to get off the front. 2 big efforts, so I think we paid the price for it.
On the outskirts of Warrnambool, 8 kilometres from the finish, 2 leaders were reabsorbed and the race was all back together. And there would be a mad sprint into town.
Bit of nervousness going in the bunch, so a lot of forward and backwards movements. So towards the end, you know, we made the call. Everyone got together and we just had enough riders to get it to the end with in the final kilometre.
Scotty's probably the quickest guy in Australia at the moment, and so we knew we had the ace in the pocket, and the other boys would have had a pretty easy ride. So we thought there was plenty of support to give them the lead out at the end. And came off.
In the final kilometres, there were a flurry of attacks as they lined up. You could see the finish line on Raglan Street. It was all back together, and budget Forklifts were leading their sprinter Scott Sunderland out as he came up that final hill, first from the pack, and came across the line to win the 100th Melbourne to Warrnambool.
Absolutely wrapped. Like, we had so many strong riders. So many strong riders in the team. Could have played it anyway, and two guys in the break with Jack Bobridge and Jack Kauffman. So, the team rode superb and set it up beautifully for the finish.
Confirmation of the results of the Lakes Oil Melbourne to Warrnambool. Scott Sunderland goes out the winner ahead of Alex Edmondson, second last year, second once again, and last year's winner Oliver Kent-Spark in third. The first female finisher was Loretta Hanson.